Okay, we're going to be starting right now. Siman Reish Samach Gimel. We had an introduction. We had a discussion why if someone is careful with the candle of Shabbos, he's going to have children that are scholars. Haroga Bener Havoyim Lobanin Talmidei Chachamim. Now we're going to continue with the actual halachas. We're going to start with the Torah. We're going to just go in order over here. The Torah says that a person should be careful. Be careful to make a candle, which is very good. Rav Huna says, someone who is regular with the Ner Shabbos, he adds the Ner Shabbos. The Shabbos candle, which is not so simple, according to Rashi, also says Chanukah, and we discussed it in the past. To strive with it. To do it very well. He was going to have children who are going to become scholars. Some, what they do is that they make 2 wicks. One corresponds to Zachor, aka the positive mitzvahs, the active mitzvahs of Shabbos, and one corresponds to Shamor, aka the negative mitzvahs of Shabbos, the passive mitzvahs of Shabbos. We're going to see other explanations as well regarding that as we continue with this learning. The Prisha points out Vafilu in the highlighted section on the bottom. Vafilu shoal absachim kedei likach ner Shabbos. This is talking about that even if you need to knock on people's doors in order to ask for money to afford ner Shabbos, the Shabbos candles, nevertheless, you have to do so. That's the Prisha quoting the Rambam. The Bach over here comes along, and basically what he is going into is the statement of Chazal, who says that Harogel Bener Havoyim Lo Banin Talmidei Chachamim, which we had a whole session on. Last session, which is someone who's careful with the candle. He's going to have children who will become scholars. And then the Bach continues on, and he says that we know that the Gemara teaches us that the Ner Shabbos, the candles for Shabbos, come before Kiddush because of Shalom Bayis, right? Also in front of Ner Chanukah because of Shalom Bayis, it brings peace to the house. The whole discussion we discussed in Hilchos Chanukah, if this applies nowadays, where we don't have where we have electricity nowadays, does this still apply? Because the whole idea of that it's going to be shalom bayis is that it's going to be peace to the house, is because a person, if they're going to be in dark, there's not going to be so much tranquility, there's not going to be so much peace over there, because it's gonna cause issues in the house, because no one's going to be able to see. That's not going to be so enjoyable. However, nowadays that we have electricity, it is not so simple that in fact will result as that, and therefore it's a whole discussion. But anyways, from the Gemara, it's clear that the Shabbos candles would come first because of that reason. And then over here, the Bach continues and he says that lighting. And he says that there's an obligation upon everyone to do this. And he says that lighting just was given over to the women, and lighting the Shabbos candles is obligatory. So if that's being so, how could Rav Huna then come along and say, if you're careful with Ner, which implies that it's like optional, then you'll have children that are going to become Talmidei Chachamim? We see from over here that it is in fact a full-fledged obligation. Rather, it must be like this, says the Bach. Even though there's an obligation of lighting Shabbos candles, mikol makom, nevertheless, you'll feel your obligation, even if it's not very the best type of oil that you could get, etc. However, if you're going to be careful to do it very, very nice and have the best of the best, that's when the segula, you go above and beyond the actual letter of the law. That's when a person will merit these scholars over here. That's basically the Bach's explanation, and then he goes into the pasuk in Mishlei Ner Mitzvah V'Torah, or that through the Ner Mitzvah, through the candle, which is a mitzvah, aka the Shabbos and the Chanukah candles, the light of the Torah will in fact come. This is the explanation of the Bach. The Bach continuing over here is going to quote a Maharil, which is going to be quoted by the Ramah in Sif Aleph. It's a little confusing when you learn this Bach over here, because, by the way, very short Beis Yosef on Sif Aleph, like almost nothing. That's why there's nothing to look at over here. But the Bach later on, it's a little tricky because it's after this little Oz Beis, which is really on the next sif. But this Maharil has to do with the Ramah and our sif. This is going to be a well-known Maharil. It's a Ramah, that he's going to come along and say that if a woman forgot to light one time, Isha sheshacha pam achas lahadlik malekes kol yamei gimel neirus. That if a woman forgot to light the Ner Shabbos one time, she has to light for the rest of her life. She has to light 3 candles. She has to add an additional candle. Now, we have to exactly discover the reasoning behind this. Why is it that if a woman forgot to light once, does she always have to add an additional candle or oil? So there's a few reasons. Let's see what the Bach says first, and we'll go in order. Venira hatamhu. It appears that the reason is as follows: Shebazeh. She's going to be very careful not to forget. Again, in other words, one word to explain this bach would be kapara. It's an atonement. Excuse me, it's a knas. I meant to say it's a fine. We're fining her, and fines are set up in order to prevent a person from violating the rules. And therefore, we want her to keep the rules in the future. And in order that she won't forget it, we therefore said that now she has to light an additional candle the rest of her life in order that she won't mess up again. Because she's going to say it's not worth it to forget. Now, there are going to be so many exceptions to this halacha that it's going to be virtually inapplicable, this halacha over here. As we're going to see, we're going to have a full session just hyper focusing and zooming in on this specific shaila that comes up about a woman lighting an additional candle. Do me a favor, sit over here, focus on this, let them do their thing. So we're going to have a whole session on the women, right over here. We're going to have a whole session on a woman focusing on a woman sitting, having to light an additional candle over here. If she forgot. That's what we're gonna do. So, but this is the Bach. We're just going through an order in the tour of the Bach. We're going through an order over here. So this is according to the Bach. According to the Bach, it's a knas. We're fining her so that she won't do it anymore. Comes along the comes along the Darchei Moshe down here. And the Darchei Moshe quotes the Maharil, which, by the way, the Maharil is nicknamed the Avi Ashkenaz, the father of Ashkenaz. And for people who are into Jewish history of how halacha develops, tremendous amount of Ashkenaz halacha comes from the Maharil, not the Maharal, the Maharil. Anyways, comes the Darchei Moshe. Calls it Maharil Isha Shachav Elohid Lika Ner B'Shabbos Sheshichu Mechel Hoisiv Ner Shtol Mitzvah Yosef Ramasha Heiser V'Gil L'Habek Avata B'Sricha Tainis Vidut. Oh. If you look at the language of the Maharal inside, I'll be honest, I didn't look up the Maharil. If you look at the language of the Maharil inside, I'm just assuming that this is a legitimate quote. It's from the Darchei Moshe, but I did not look up the Maharil inside. But the way that the Maharil is being quoted by the Darchei Moshe is if she forgets to light, not only does she need to add another light, but she needs to fast. She needs to fast because she messed up, and she needs to do vidui. Shamnu bagan, she has to confess that she sinned. V'kol ze eino elo chumros rechoikos. Says the Darchei Moshe, these are all far-fetched stringencies.
Wow.
Wow. But what's far-fetched stringency? Hold that idea. V'adrabba, nira de kol hamoisef alanerus eloinu goreya mafsid hakavana shozach v'sham. If you're adding on the candles, you're taking away, you're causing a loss on the intention of what Zachor and Shamar is actually about. Aval. Hanoshim no hagos kedivrei Maharil. But the women, they accustom themselves like the Maharil. Shekol sheshacha pam achas madach kol yemeha gimel neirus. But the Darchei Moshe says, end of the day, she should be lighting another candle. Vanir de samchu adivrei Mordechai the custom of seches Rosh Hashanah reish parak yotes yachoin lahiz v'adam rechuven. You really could add on something that's a set amount. So this is where it comes from. This is the basic background information. This is the Maharil.
So the Mordechai is the source of adding a candle? It's
No,
not a din of the Gemara.
No. It's not in the Gemara. It's the Maharil. The Mordechai. Where did the Mordechai? The Mordechai. He's saying that you could add on something. That's something else.
That's something I said.
Right. This is the Maharil.
So the Maharil is the first place where we see
it. It seems like the Maharil comes along the Shulchan Aruch and says, be careful to make a good candle. Some do 2 wicks, one corresponding to Zachor, the positive mitzvah Shabbos, one to Shamar, the negative mitzvah, says the Ramah. You could add 3 or 4 candles. We're going to come to that. Where does it come from? From adding candles. We know a well-known custom to add for every single child. What's the earliest source of that? I'll give you a hint. It's nowhere in Shas, nowhere in Rishonim. Where on earth does that come from? Good question. We're going to be learn from that. We're going to learn from that. If she forgot one time, for each time she has to add another nair. You see, you could add on it. So you could add, and that's what she in fact would do. The Magen Avram, and we're going to come to this. This is going to have a tremendous practical halachic ramification nowadays. The Magen Avram says, "V'yadlik b'chol chadar sheholach sham." You should light in all the rooms that you're going to go to. In other words, keep electricity on in all of the rooms that you're going to potentially use on Shabbos. That's what this is saying over here. In Oz Beis, in the Magen Avraham, he says some of them custom to light 7 candles, some light 10. Shla, whole discussion of itself. She forgot once. If she forgot many times, Magen Avraham Gimel, she has to light every single time that she forgot. My time in your leading the end, so key line of Magen Avraham. If she had an oinus, an extenuating circumstance that prevented her from lighting, she doesn't need to light. I just want to pose the question right now to get everyone thinking, but not provide the answer. If a woman lit candles, she lit it and then literally 20 seconds, a minute later, it went out. Does now she need to add another candle her entire life? Went out or not? So, okay, so this is onus. If she had an extenuating circumstance and she didn't like it going to for example, let's say she was incarcerated in prison. She couldn't light. They wouldn't let her. They thought that she was going to burn her cell down and escape.
Car broke down.
Right? Yeah. Oh, we're going to discuss that. If a person, there's a difference. Was a person stuck in traffic because he was saying, "Oh, I could beat the traffic," and he was leaving 4.5 seconds before Shabbos before he gets home? Or did he leave ample time? It happened to be that there was crazy weather, crazy accident, something happened, and that's what caused the backup. Right? So we have to discuss, is there going to be a difference between exactly what onus is? Okay, so anyways, this is the Magen Avram, which is many times removes this halacha and makes it inapplicable because it's considered extenuating circumstance. Comes along the Levush Srad and says to light in all rooms. Afal pi she'ino oichel sham, says the Levush Srad, even though you're not going to eat in all of the rooms. Well, we're going to learn in Sivav. If you're going to learn in a different place, you got to light there, even though you're not eating there. If you're going there, you got to light. Obviously, that doesn't mean that if you're going to your room to go to sleep, you light. You make sure that the nair is lit. You make sure that the electricity is on. That's not what it means. The Prima Gadim over here says that if she typically lights 2 candles or more and she forgot 1 candle, according to the Prima Gadim, she has to light another candle the rest of her life. That's an intense ruling. Now, we're going to see others are going to argue on this, but this is the Prima Gadim in the highlighted section on the screen. This is the opinion of the Prima Gadim. Interesting, and it's we have to learn it if it's out there. The Machasis HaShekel over here comes along and says we have 7 aliyahs on Shabbos morning that we do when we lane. Guess what? If you want, you could technically add an aliyah. So we see that you're able to add on something even if it's a set amount. That's what we see from over here. So too she could add if she forgot. The next Machasis HaShekel, he quotes the in Sivkot and Gimel, and we're going to see this in the Levush momentarily as well. The Machasis HaShekel over here is going to quote the Eli Rabbah in Oz Test. That might be a typo. I think it comes a little bit before in the Eli Rabbah. But we'll see in the Levush, it's going to get double quoted. That if she forgot, she could be lenient. She doesn't need to light another candle. What she could do is one of 2 things. If she uses oil, which really oil is preferable, to use olive oil in particular, but we'll be discussing that at length as we continue through these halachas. Anyways, she could be lenient if she forgot not to add. She could just add more oil for the rest of her life. Add slightly more oil. If she likes wax, go with bigger candles from now on. So you have a tweak in this halacha, according to the Rabbah, saying that you don't need to have a physical additional receptacle to hold the oil or the wax. Rather, it's just to add a little bit more or a bigger candle. So that's interesting to point out. Now, this next Machasis HaShekel is very fundamental in terms of a deep understanding behind this halacha of if she forgot 1 candle, she needs to continue to light. We already learned the Bach. The Bach clearly stated the reason for this is we're finding her and we're making sure that she doesn't repeat this sin. However, the Machasisa Shekel doesn't necessarily take that for granted and say that it's so simple. He says, had it not been for the words of the Bach, we would have thought that you need to add another candle. It's already slipped out of my mouth before because of kapara. It's an atonement. She sinned. Now she needs to do something to fix that sin, to atone for that sin that she did. And therefore, even in a case of onus, if she had extenuating circumstance and she didn't like because of that, she would need an atonement for that, and therefore it could very well be that even in that case, she would need to light another candle for the rest of her life, not like the Magen Avram's ruling. Another explanation behind this halacha is tashlumin. She missed lighting a candle, now she has to make up the candle. So that would also apply in a case of onus if she had extenuating circumstance. However, according to the reason of the Bach, that it's just so that she's going to be careful not to violate this halacha in the future. So therefore, in a case of if she had an extenuating circumstance, she doesn't need to light more because she doesn't need to add another candle because the whole reason why she forgot is because of extenuating circumstance. It wasn't because of her. She didn't really forget it. The whole reason why she was rather unable to light is because she had an extenuating circumstance. So therefore, if she had an extenuating circumstance which is completely out of her control, we don't need to fine her for that. It wasn't her fault. So those are three potential reasons behind this halacha. Very interesting. Anyways, so this is the Torah, this is the Shulchan Aruch on Sif Aleph, the Levush, Rabbi Mordechai Yaffa, the Talmud Muvach, the big student of the Ramah, says, lighting their Shabbos is Oinig Shabbos Kishabayis Mayor Zinker Shalom Bayis. It's Oinig Shabbos, that's called Shalom Bayis. Some are going to actually say it's the opposite. If I'm not mistaken, we're going to see it could be both. It's covered on Shabbos, like we discussed in the past. The question is which way. But anyways, this is according to the Levush. Take a look at the Chida. I think that this is the Chida Maria Zula, if I'm not mistaken. He says that 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 there's going to be a difference. We're going to learn about this more, that the husband should set up the nair, the woman should light it. The Eliozuta quotes over here a Shlomo Mata Moshe, who says that a woman yesh leisha le'ispala b'shas hadlaka al banim ba'alei Torah. When a woman lights candles, she should daven that her children should become scholars. And this really ties in very nicely to what we learned the other day, that that's why it's a very auspicious and special time to pray for the children.
Is this the first time we're seeing such a source of daven for the kid, or
Yes, thus far. I mean, we just started,
okay?
but the Caf Hachaim quotes this. I mean, a lot of people are going to quote it. Yeah. Take this is actually well, it's actually a Shlana Mata Moshe, but they're all quoting the same people.
Is it typically Talmud Chacham, or let's say the parent wants something not Talmud Chacham? Certain parents might want success in a different area.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's why we have to give them what we call a hashkafa wash and let them know what's important in life. But that's another discussion in of itself.
Always daven for anything. Always daven.
You could daven for anything. This is
no, I'm saying, but it seems like a time that's like special for success of the kids. Maybe the person wants the kid to be successful in I don't know, sports or whatever. I know.
Ever for Shlema, maybe a
something
like that.
Torah is the most important. Torah is the most important.
Specifically Talmud Chacham.
That's right. That's right. You could daven for anything, but it's a time you have to daven for Torah. That's the most important thing. Elia Rabban Oz Beis says that some say this is a very nice vote. You share this with your wife. Some say, you know why we light two candles? One candle's for the husband, one candle's for the wife. You know what the gematria of Ner is?
50.
250. 250 times 2 is what?
500.
You know what else is 500?
The years that Noach lived before the Abel.
The limbs that are in our body and a woman's body equal 500.
248, and she has how many?
252.
252.
252.
That's
right.
Extra?
Yeah, extra.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why we don't say Ramach.
You know
by a woman, I guess.
What?
We don't say by the Mishna Berura for colon. We don't list it.
That's right. That's right. You know what else is 500? Match approval.
Yeah?
Yeah. You know what else is 500? When there's a custom for Ashkenazim, you walk down the chuppah with a candle. Two candles.
Near and
You know what the gematria of two candles near and there is?
We said 500.
We just said 500.
So why do
A
you
lot of
do?
500. So we're walking down. We're saying we want 500. Peer review.
Then-
That's how you got to start the wedding off.
Uh-huh.
That's why
Is the
two
vote
candles.
voted? Urvo?
Yeah, you got it. You want me to get a calculator out?
286.
Calculator?
286.
We got you.
Urvo.
We got you. We got you right here. Peer review. You ready? You got the pay.
Well, the first one's 286.
Huh.
Urvo. Okay.
I got the whole picture. Get the whole picture. True. Ooh. There you go. See the calculation over here. Peer review, yeah?
Yeah.
You got the pay. We're talking 80. Let's expand our horizons. You got 80 plus 200 is the ratio. Another ratio is another 200. So we're at
You skip the two sixes.
right? Yeah, hold on.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. What did I do wrong over here?
Pay or
Two ratios is 400. All right?
okay.
400. The 80 is 80. Okay, we're at 480. Now we need another 20. All right? So we're at 480.
18, 3 votes.
Hold it.
there
Three
it is.
votes. 6 times 3 is what?
18.
18 plus 2 plus the what? 480 equals 500. Game over. You got all the work over here on the sides. Right over there. All right? Prove it. All right?
There we go.
Now you believe it.
And that's why you have
Now you believe it. I got to prove it to you. Yeah, that's right. You share this. This is a good quick vote. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You should buy the MMA one.
All right, that's where it comes from. Now, it could be on a deeper level. The Caf Hachaim also quotes this. It has to do with the neshama and the guf. We have a physical body, we have a soul. It represents it. There's a lot of deep ideas happening over here. But anyways, this is the basic page of the Levush. Let's just take a look. I didn't have time to highlight, but I looked at this morning. I brought actually my Caf Hachaim and davening while I was taking off my tefillin. I looked at it. I already had some underlines over here. Also, he says it over here. This is a time for davening for the children that the males should light up the world with their Torah. That's what this time is for. All right, you light in all the rooms. We already learned that. 2 weeks we already discussed. Can I get Zachor? Can I get Shamor? Some say, and then he goes into this over here more. Right? He goes into it more. You light 2 candles. Nair corresponds to the limbs in the male and female body. And here he says right over here, he specifies it. Women have 4 more than men. All right. Another is that there's souls. We have the Neshama Yeseda on Shabbos. Okay. Another reason is okay, fine. So those are some of the reasons.
The second
okay.
one's for the regular summer, one's for the Sarah.
Could be also. So there's a lot of different explanations behind the two. This is very interesting halacha. There's a halacha in Hilchas Chanukah and Siman Tuf Reish Ayin Aleph. You're not allowed to light a torch. By Havdalah, you should light a torch. That's how you connect 2 wicks, as we know. We learned from Hilchas Havdalah. So the question is, let's say a person has a bowl, and this whole thing has oil in the bowl, and they light the whole thing. Does that count?
Wick on one side, wick on the other.
Oh, if there's a wick on one side and the other, does that count as 2 wicks or 1 wick?
Probably 2.
Yeah, that's what you would have thought, right? Guess what? You got to cover that thing up, all right? Or there has to be a space in between them, right? This is what it's saying. If they're distanced from each other, according to this, the amount of a finger, then it's fine.
A length.
In other words, probably with. In other words, one side to the other could be okay, but if it's right next to each other, there has to be a finger in between. If you cover it, so then it's fine. It's all discussion. Hilchos Chanukah comes up. So anyway, so that would be the same thing over here if a person is improvising because he has a limited amount of receptacles to contain the oil over there. All right. It's obviously a problem of using oil or wax that was used for idolatry. Stolen items. We're gonna have to see if that's gonna come up more also. But this is basically some of the main ideas that are in the Caf Hachaim. He's gonna go into. We should spend another session on this. In particular, just adding more candles. Let's see if we could roll through all the Mishna Beruras in the 10 remaining minutes that we have. We'll just go through it, just get some sort of quick bikius on it, and then we will dissect it more in the upcoming sessions that we have. The Mishna Berura says, "Yeh Zahir." says like this, Hine Iker hadlakas haner hu choiva mishum mitzvah soinik Shabbos. Umachmas hider mitzvah yir lasoi yafa. When we're talking about lighting the Ner Shabbos, it's an obligation because of Oneg Shabbos. Very interesting, he only specifies Oneg Shabbos and he doesn't say covered Shabbos, as we learned already. We saw it's both. So we'll have to come back to the idea in the Mishna Berura. Mishna Berura and Beis, V'isa b'shas, Ezoicha v'zelaban temdichamim, Chsiv kinei mitzvah Torah, or your mitzvah Shabbos bar Torah, old news. You're gonna get Talmid Chachamim when you're careful with this, because that through the candle, that's the mitzvah of Shabbos, the light of the Torah is going to come. Kach roishes pala isha chishtigmar hadlak of bracha shiti and la kadosh baruch hu but it's zacharimim b'Torah. Therefore, she should pray when she is lighting. Really, he says over here, after she completes lighting and the bracha that Hashem should give her boys that will light up the world with their Torah. Right, you gotta light candles. Remember, this is before the time of electricity. In every single room that you're gonna use on Shabbos, however, the bracha is only made in the place where you're gonna eat. Nowadays, we would have electricity instead. We're going to learn about, as we continue in the Siman Mir Hashem, if you're going out for the Sud at night, for the meal at night, where do you light? At the meal or at home where you're sleeping? We're going to see. Very important and relevant question that comes up. Yeah.
Did we see the Ner Mitzvah of the Torah, or we saw
Yes,
that?
we did. Yeah.
Okay, so that-
Gimel and Mishna Berura, Lasa Yisvim Ma'oisav Mitzumanim Nir Shetoiv Yoiser Shiyikna Chayafel Sham. Interesting. If a person is pressed financially and he's either able to afford one preferable type of oil with a wick or one candle versus getting two which aren't as good, go all out on one of them. Do one in a preferable manner rather than two in a way that is not preferable. That's an interesting ruling. Two wicks. I know you should
That's a strange halacha because I don't think anybody would practically do that. You'd feel like strange, you know. I have one just because it's like, you know what I'm saying? Because everybody does two.
We're gonna have to see who says you even need to.
Yeah.
You don't need to.
Yeah, no, you don't need to.
It's custom.
It's a normal thing. That's like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes, it's the custom. However, if the person could only afford one option or the other, so you have to know it's a nice one.
yeah, no, even what I'm trying to say is even practically that's halacha. It's like a weird thing to do. No, the people would be embarrassed probably to do that.
Okay.
You're saying it doesn't matter. It's still
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Still. Dalit state seals 2 wicks. Hainu kishuhu doilik shema mener. 2 wicks when you are lighting the oil in the receptacle. Fima dekasu beneido is if you're using wax candles. Oisa shnei reyos do 2 candles. Umutter lahadlik mener lener beini madlik shnei mayoser ve'imbo mishum bizu mitzvah to kula shematzim. This is very interesting. You could light from one candle to another. That's not considered disgracing the mitzvah because they're all one mitzvah. Also lahadlik kisam oner shel chol miner shel Shabbos mishum bizu mitzvah. Very important. It's prohibited to light a wood chip or just a regular mundane weekday candle from the Shabbos candle. That will be considered disgracing the mitzvah. You can't put your cigarette there to get a light from your Shabbos candle before Shabbos starts. Not that anyone should be smoking cigarettes anyways, but your cigar there, whatever it is, you can't do it. And see the video on vaping and smoking weed for more details. The custom is to be stringent with this, even if your intention is in order to light another Shabbos candle. Still, you can't do it. See the Be'er Halacha. There's a custom to make a candle out of wax from 2 candles that are kiluyim. Woven, braided together, woven to correspond to remember that which Chazal teaches the Gemara Rosh Hashanah Chav Zayin that Zachar Shamar is said with one statement. The positive mitzvahs and the negative mitzvahs of Shabbos were said in one statement, and that is a good custom, a proper custom. But those people are connecting these candles when they're lighting near one another. That's not good. That's against halacha what they're doing. So it's because then they're going to get hot from one another, and it's going to drip. The wax going to drip from one of them. The gam nikfalus minofos. Also, they're going to fold over and fall. Also, okay, so this is actually already getting important over here. It's prohibited to light the candles from wax that comes from the place where people are involved with idolatry. Afilu ba'ofen shemutter lahedjot, even a way if it's permissible for a common commotion Yehudi, for example, if it was nullified, it's prohibited because it is considered disgusting. This reminds me of one of the least applicable halachas in Hilchas Chanukah, but as I like saying, it's not applicable till it's applicable. If I'm not mistaken, the source of this is either in Taf Reish Ayin Beis or Taf Reish Ayin Gimel, original recordings of Rabbi.com into the halacha and Mishna Berura and Chanukah section, which is that if you have a dead mouse or an alive mouse in your oil on Hanukkah, you're not allowed to use that for Hanukkah. Why mayas? I think even if you know that the mouse left and jumped in, jumped out, I think it would still be a shiloh. But definitely if it was dead and it was in there, it's prohibited. So too over here, look, like I say, if you have insects, it would be permissible. It only specifies a mouse over there. It wouldn't be as disgusting. So take that insect, scoop it out, go for it. So that's the story over there. This also if in Hilchos Shabbos, if you don't mind, and a little bug falls in your soup, and you still want the soup, if you would scoop the bug out, it's a problem of bowware. What you do is you take your spoon and you take out some of the soup with it, and then you toss it so you're not just taking the bad completely from the good. Again, you have to know your style and what you can handle, but that's the idea over here. If this is the only candle you have, you could light it, but you wouldn't make a bracha on it. So you see how stringent this is, ad kedei kach, to the extent that you would not even recite a bracha. You could add more candles. Some of the custom to light 7 candles corresponding to the 7 days of the week. Can I get some like 10 candles correspondent to the Asara? It didn't say out. Seres Hadibros, Asara Malamaros, the world was created, 10 statements, 10 commandments. We have a lot of 10. Seres Hadibros, here it is. All of them, however, do not need to be on the table. 3 candles. This is talking about she lit. She usually lights 2 candles, and now she forgot. Now she gets fined. She has to light 3 for the rest of her life. An additional candles. Let's talk about if she regularly lit 2. If she regularly lights 3, she should be careful with 4. You know, this can happen a lot. This can happen on Yontif if a woman forgets to light. We're gonna have to see if this applies on Yontif also. Second day Yontif, things are confusing. The person messes up, something happens, whatever. That's when this could certainly happen. It also gets tricky with the timing of the mikvah sometimes. But anyways, if that's making night, if she got a few times, each time she has to light another candle. So the Mishna Berura is going like the Bach's reason, which is because to fine her so that she won't mess up with this in the future. So that she will be careful with honoring Shabbos. This is straight out of the Magen Avram's playbook, like we just saw earlier today. Therefore, if she had an extenuating circumstance and didn't light, for example, if she was incarcerated and something similar, she doesn't need to add. Interesting, you have the Mishna Berura quoting this Eli Rabba over here. The Mishna Berura is quoting the Eli Rabba as saying, if a woman who is poor forgot to light a candle, she doesn't need to light another candle the rest of her life. Rather, she should just have a longer candle than she's used to. If she lights candles, she should use a bigger candle. If she uses oil, she should just add more oil, but she doesn't need another oil. This is the Eli Rabba. The Eli Rabba, but it's interesting that the Mishna Berura over here is quoting the Eli Rabba
only by a poor woman.
Right, by a poor woman, because the way that we saw, if I'm not mistaken, we'll fact check it right now on double checking that. But when we saw this Eli Rabba, oh, we didn't see it inside. We saw it quoted. No, it wasn't conditional. Where did we see it? I thought it was over there. Eli Rabba in Tess. No, we saw it somewhere. I was like, I didn't realize it was all the way in Tess over there. Here, okay. Oh, veneer lahakel. He says a veneer lahakel bazel isha aniya.
Oh,
You could be lenient with a woman who's poor. A woman who is poor, you could say it, and he's going on. You only need to light a bigger candle or put more oil. You don't need another nair. Not like the understanding of the Ramad and Levush. So he does specify if she was poor. So anyways, this is the Mishna Berura. Let's conclude with Mishna Berura. The 2 candles on Shabbos correspond to the positive mitzvah Shabbos, negative mitzvah Shabbos. Question, comments on anything that we did today whatsoever.
think, I think my wife asked, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But like, if you asked one time and then you had another.
If what?
kid,
What?
You, one time a person forgets.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then they have another child.
Yes.
Supposedly, as you had 3 kids and now you forgot, now you have the 4th, then you have the 4 candles, then you have the 4th child, you can, you have the 4th child, no?
I know what you're asking. Nothing doing.
You think that if they have the 4th child, they're saying they've had the 4th child.
If you are fine, you are a married couple, you have 2 candles, you forgot once. You light 3, you have your first kid, Mazel Tov, now you have to light 4.
So you had 2, you forgot, now you light 3, and then you have your 3rd
Yeah.
child, you have to light 4.
That's right. We're going to learn the source and where exactly this developed to light another candle for each kid, because we just went through the Torah, the Shulchan Aruch, the Mishna Berura, the Levush, the Caf Hachaim. We went through it. Where do we see anywhere that you add candles for your children? Where do we see it?
Yeah.
We don't. So where does it come from? That's what we're going to figure out next week. Gonna have to.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna go into more halachas, very, very relevant halachas coming up. Mitzvah Shem, everyone should have a wonderful day and a good Shabbos.
All right.